Good evening, everybody. It's 6:30. It's March 20th. We're here at City Hall. I'll start off tonight's meeting by reading the mission statement. Our mission is to create a safe and caring climate and culture in which we prepare, engage, educate, empower, and inspire all learners in partnership with their surrounding community to be successful in today and tomorrow's society. Les, could you lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance, please? Thank you, Les. Would you mind please taking roll?
Jeff Polarize.
Here.
Monica Segura Schwartz.
Here.
Al Dahlgren.
Here.
Shannon Hawes.
Here.
Natalie Ringsmuth.
Here.
Zach Dorholt.
Here.
Les Green is here. Superintendent Willie, also at the meeting tonight is Superintendent Willie Jett, Assistant Superintendent Dr. Marcia Beisch, Executive Director of Learning and Teaching Lori Posch, Executive Director of Student Services and Special Education Carol Potter, Executive Director of Operations Gary Ganji, Executive Director of Finance and Business Services is not here this evening. Executive Director of Human Resources Tracy Flynn Bowe, Executive Director of Community Education Adam Holm, and Director of Community Engagement and Communications, Tammy DeLand. There. And in my understanding, Mr. Jett, that tonight you have invited a special guest to be with us. His name is John Calabro. He has is going to come forward, and while he's coming forward, we're going to watch a short video. But my understanding is that he has some advice for you that you want us to hear.
Without doubt, yes.
Right.
Mr. John Calabro, we definitely want to hear the advice that he has to share.
All right, John, who are you dressing like today?
Superintendent Willie Jett.
Do you want to give Willie Jett any sort of message for today?
Yeah, that there should be canceled school today.
Oh, why is that?
Because I feel like every time there's a late start, there should also be no school.
Okay, all right. You gonna have a good day?
Yeah,
Okay.
I hope.
All right, John, we're going to ask some questions, okay? You cool with that? I get to ask you about the weather. What do you think about the weather lately? Any worries about that? And you can speak into the microphone.
I think it might flood.
Flood? Really?
All the snow that up the rain that happened during the week.
Whoops. Yeah, go ahead. Tell us about the snow.
All the rain and snow that will melt.
Got it. Very good. All right, Zach?
Sure. I'm just wondering if you were the superintendent, how would you decide whether to close the schools during bad weather?
If it's bad enough.
Sounds straight answer.
All right, very black and white answer. Thank you so much. I am wondering, what is the most exciting thing that you've learned at school this year? You go to Talahi, is that right? All right, what's the most exciting thing you've learned?
What do you like to learn? Hanging out with your friends? What are things?
Or just an okay thing that you've learned is fine too.
Well, I like math.
Okay. Now, John, I have a question for you. When you answered when weather's bad enough, what is bad enough? Is it snow? Is it rain? Is it cold? Is it wind? I'll be quiet.
If there's a chance that any kind of vehicle couldn't get to the school.
Okay, so you're worried about safety. Okay, see, I like that. And then in the video, when Principal Hansen asked you a question, you talked about late starts versus just canceling the whole day. Now, you'd like to cancel the whole day instead of the late start? Why?
There's no point in kids being tricked that it's no school when they wake up and there's no school.
Okay, so you're thinking that we're tricking you. Got it. Okay. Well, a couple different things. So we just wanted to, first and foremost, have you come here and come up and speak. And that day that we actually saw this video, you know, I came to school to visit you to say that I was just impressed with what you said, but I was more impressed with the conversation that you and I had in the hallway and at your desk, and the conversation that we had in the audience before we started this meeting. What I wanted to say to everybody was this young man here, he embodies and he's a reminder of why we do what we do, whether it's the Board of Education, the Cabinet, the administration, or District 742 in general. I do want to say thank you to his parents, to Ruth, and to David, who's not here today, but I'd like to say thank you for entrusting us with your most prized possession. I also want to say hello to Joseph, his brother, who's filming out there. And then there's family, I think, way up top, and they're waving. And then lastly, being that this is live stream, I wanted to say thank you to grandmother Louise, who is there at home with the kids, but she's watching. So we just wanted to say thank you. And last but not least, I wanted to say thank you to you. Okay, I want to say thank you to John, because you were a gift to me on that day, and you've been a gift to me ever since, and I'm keeping that video forever. Okay?
Okay.
Okay. So thank you for being here that day and today and tonight. Nice job.
You're welcome.
All righty. See you later.
All right, tonight we have 5 things on the consent agenda. The consent agenda consists of non-controversial items that the board routinely adopts without debate. Any single member of the board may remove an item from the consent agenda by requesting removal at the time the consent agenda is moved for adoption. The full text of items can be found at the end of the agenda. Item number A on tonight is the approval of tonight's agenda. Item B is the approval of minutes from February 26th and March 6th meetings. Item C is the approval of payment of bills and other financial transactions in the grand total of $12,330,792.86. Item D is the approval of personnel staff changes. Item E is the acceptance of grants, awards, and donations. Do I have a motion?
I would like to remove something, Chair Paul Reese.
What item is that?
I would like to remove item D, which is approval of personnel staff changes, to ask a question about that.
All right. We will vote on the rest of it, and then we'll come back to your thing as a separate, okay? Do I have a second for the consent agenda minus item D?
Was there a motion?
That's what I'm looking for. Well,
Did you move, Natalie?
I so move.
Okay. Second.
all right. Les, can you call roll, please?
Shannon Hawes,
Yes.
Monica Segura-Schwartz,
Yes.
Zach Dorhold,
Yes.
Jeff Pulrize,
Yes.
Les Green is yes, Al Dahlgren,
Yes.
Natalie Ringsmuth.
Yes.
All right. Natalie, did you have a question about D?
Yes. Sorry, let me pull it up here. I was just wondering, under, let's see which one it is here. Under the additional assignment category, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, it looks like, teachers, full-time contract teachers that were reassigned as psychologists and for our elementary schools, and I'm just wondering, and also our high school, and I'm wondering if there was some sort of a funding stream that happened or why there was that change at this point in the year. I'm looking at the person who probably has the answer for me.
Sure. No, all of those individuals are currently school psychologists. Under Minnesota statutes, a teacher is anybody in a licensed position. So they're currently school psychologists. We have a school psychologist that is resigning their position as of March 5th, and so we can't hire school psychologists in March. They're a hard to hire position all the time, but particularly in the middle of a school year. And so we've taken that person's caseload and balanced it out as an overload for those 5 school psychologists.
Thank you for that clarification, Tracy.
Absolutely.
Any other questions? Les, would you take roll on that matter, please?
Excuse me, do we have to vote on that one also?
Correct.
Is there a motion to?
That's what I'm,
So move.
okay. Second?
Second.
Second.
All right.
Okay, Al Dahlgren,
Yes.
Les Green is yes, Jeff Polreis,
Yes.
Zach Dorhold,
Yes.
Shannon Hawes,
Yes.
Natalie Ringsmuth,
Yes.
Monica Segura Swartz.
Yes.
Thank you, Les. Tonight on the information items, first up is item number A. It's community education, adult basic education, presentation by Adam Holm, Executive Director of Community Education.
Good evening, Chairperson Polreis, School Board Superintendent Jett. I'm Adam Holm, Executive Director of Community Education. Very excited to be here tonight to talk about our programming. Everything we do starts with our mission, which is to create a safe and caring climate and culture in which we prepare, engage, educate, and inspire all learners in partnership with their surrounding communities to be successful in today's and tomorrow's society. I've highlighted 2 words that talks about inspire and partnership. And if you can look at this, is our first year we had a district youth choir that took students from every elementary, had an opportunity to participate, and they participated throughout our community, and we'll talk a little bit about them in a little bit. And then our One District, One Book program with the IM 742 with our community partnership with a bunch of partners, but ultimately this event this day was at Shields, one of our key partners on that day to promote literacy throughout the district. One of our programs that we deal a lot with our students is the Kids Connection. Kids Connection and the Eagle Tiger Clubs, which are our before school care programs. We are a fee-based program for families in need of child care prior to the school day. Kids Connection opens at 6 a.m. In our middle school program, the Eagle and Tiger Clubs open at 7 a.m. Another program we offer is Kinder Camp, which is offered in August in buildings available, not having construction, etc., for incoming kindergartners to experience the kindergarten classroom. This is an enrichment camp with benefits such as reducing child and parent anxiety about starting kindergarten. Licensed kindergarten teachers from the host building teach these camps. Also, in partnership with our immersion programs, we offer immersion camps each summer. We offer these to keep skills sharp and to introduce students to their upcoming immersion programs. Next, we have a comprehensive enrichment program for youth. St. Cloud's Youth Enrichment Program provides children with educational programs and activities that extend beyond their regular school day. Enrichment programs are designed to address youth needs in many areas such as academic, cultural, social, emotional, and recreational. This program boasts a wide range of offerings, including technology, art, music, language, math, reading, science, sports and recreation, STEAM, and more. Enrichment classes provide students the opportunity to improve their academic and social skills, explore new interests, gain new insights, and make a lot of new friends. Collaborating with our business partners is an integral part of community education classes. The benefits to both community education participants and area businesses receive are abundant. Talented and skilled professionals grow our programs and their businesses as well. We have classes in arts, cooking, health and fitness, recreation, STEAM, wellness, technology, life skills, travel, and community service. Approximately 50 businesses partner with community education this past year. We also collaborate with learning and teaching. After extensive research, we started the District 742 Youth Choir. This choir also partnered with another community ed program, the Fun Singers, to host a free concert for the community at Apollo High School. The youth choir also performed at Night of the Stars. In addition, we partnered with the One District, One Book Committee and schools to create a free community event at Shields Sporting Goods down in St. Cloud. We had over 500 people attend the event and had dedicated reading circles. Some of these reading circles were run by our foster grandparents, another district partnership. The event also generated over 490 books for our Pack Rat Summer Reading Program. We also just completed a mock interview program at Apollo High School where local area business people conduct the interviews and provide feedback to our students. Our Adult Enrichment program provides enrichment, academics, and recreational opportunities for lifelong learners. Each program areas encourage skill building, promotes health and well-being, and creates a stronger community. We offer more than 380 community programs that offer a chance of our residents to learn new skills, make new connections. Last year, we served over 2,200 people. Our adults with disability programs are designed to serve adults with physical, developmental, or cognitive disabilities by encouraging inclusion in the community and providing educational, social, and recreational opportunities for our participants. This year, we partnered with Great Theater and offered an intro to acting class. They also traveled to the Capitol this fall, and then there was a class held on voting and how bills are passed. We also are committed to partnering with our community volunteers to help personalize instruction and enrich curriculum for all learners. We offer a variety of volunteer opportunities for individuals. So far, we've had over 1,600 individuals who have volunteered over 13,500 hours. We also take great pride in our schools and encourage their use. Community education coordinates the use of school facilities under the regulations approved by the Board of Education to assist groups and organizations in the use and rental of school district facilities. We have permitted over 72,000 hours and have generated over $113,000. St. Cloud ABE welcomes all adults 17 and over who have not currently enrolled in a regular school program. We help individuals looking to improve basic reading, writing, or math skills, earn a GED, General Education Diploma, or an adult high school diploma, improve English language skills. Adult basic education also offers a flexible schedule for our learners and classes designed to fit their busy lives. We also have support services available to help learners participate in classes and programs, some of which include basic skills, transition to college, job and career exploration, one-on-one tutoring, or we also hold classes on Saturday to teach our parents how to use the Skyward app and Schoology on weekends. Here's a short little video.
I moved to St. Cloud when my father wasn't doing well health-wise, and my mother needed some help with him. So I took early retirement and came here, and my dad died 6 months after I came, which was heartbreaking. And I needed to do something with myself, and I've always done theater. So right away I started introducing myself to the Great Northern and Great Theater. And my sister, it turns out, was a teacher here, and she said, you know, there's a position open for a literacy accountability assistant, so you probably wouldn't even want to do that. And I said, well, maybe I would. So I auditioned and then started to work with the students in the study hall and enjoyed that. And eventually I was subbing all the time. All the teachers would call me first, and so I'd be seeing what the different levels of ESL were like. You know, there's one student that, and she's a lovely Somali woman. The other day we did kind of this practice thing for a CASAS test. And she's always been frustrated with those because she never, you know, I let them do it first and then I say what the answer is and then we talk about it. And so she got them all right on one page. And she said, I got it. I got it. It was so cute.
I appreciate a lot EPA programs because they help the community also. And then also I'm helping my children now because I have education now. Before I don't have enough education. Right now I feel enough for language. I mean, it's my language and the other language for English. Also, I can help the community because I'm working with ALA. They are teaching the language, the community. And then sometimes I make translate. Sometimes I'm helping the basic students.
Well, I think it's best when you get testimonials from parents that will say, gosh, this program means everything to my child. You know, I, of course, have to set up the catalog, set up the classes, do all the detail work and stuff here. But every opportunity that I get, I like to check in. I like to go to, I love board games in my everyday life. I'll come and play games with them. I guess when I connect with somebody that isn't verbal, but I'm able to communicate with them through body language, through pictures, through whatever, I see that light in their eyes and the, you know, like, oh, somebody understands me, somebody gets what I'm talking about, or what do I want to say. That makes me so happy.
I am 742.
I am ABE.
I am community education.
I am 742.
Do you have any questions?
Natalie?
Well, thank you for sharing this with us. That video made my heart happy. So Tammy, if you helped with that, thank you so much. I'm wondering for ABE, with the citizenship class, what does that entail? And do you, I know there's the 100 questions that you have to be asked and things like that, but what is that all about?
So they work individually with the student based on their needs to make sure that they can answer the questions that might come up. So it's all pretty much individually based. Based on how they'll pre-test and post-test. So they get them the help that they're going to need.
Okay. Well, my part-time job is with an immigration attorney, so I think I need to talk to you more about that because that's definitely sometimes an issue. But so thanks for doing that in the community, and thanks for sharing this with us.
Monica?
Hi. Thank you again for the presentation. I'd like you to talk a little bit more about the need in the community for ELL classes for adults, and also a little bit more about funding for those classes. So what is the need? There is a waiting list, and what is the funding for those classes? Where does it come from? And also, alas, how do we know that those classes are being effective?
Yep, so this year the state is looking at measurable skill gains, how the growth is. So each one is broken down by, there's 6 categories, ESL 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. 6 are very conversational, ready to go. So that one's the hardest one. That means you're ready to pass the adult diploma test. But otherwise, there's levels. So it's 42%, I believe, is the current number this year. And they get pre-tested after 40 hours, tested by CASAS at 40 hours. And then they can see where their growth is, where their strengths are. Our classes are full because of core review. Some hours are up and some are down. But we're funded by the state on per pupil from the prior year's numbers. So they give us an allocation from the year based on where we were, and you can only grow 10%. But based on our other sites, so a lot of people know we're at La Cruz. We work with the community. We're at there. We're at the police outpost a little bit. That's been growing. We're also at at the library, and that's with one of our partners, Hands Across the World. And we're at one of our Pilgrim's Pride. This year, Pilgrim's Pride decided they weren't going to have fall classes. So that took some things away from those students, but they're having it in the spring. So we're funded by the state on you can, if you want to swing over, I can show you the breakdown for each piece, but it's funded completely different than regular school funding, but it's all based on their hours and how well they do. But our waiting list goes up and down, and then we also provide them opportunities with our consortium members if they're willing to go. Like Sauk Rapids has some openings. If we're full, we'd offer them that. But we're on a bus line. We try to make it very convenient. We have what I feel a fantastic program with great teachers, and we go at night, 2 nights a week. We go Saturdays, but a lot of them are full. Mostly our 2s, 3s, and 4s have the waiting list. But they work through them. If they chose not to come a few times, and they get a letter signed by me, and then we open up a spot so we make sure we're maximizing every seat we can.
So a follow-up question is the funding enough? And the question that you didn't answer of the one is that do you have a waiting list, or how is that demand for those classes?
Yep, so the waiting list would be in our section, our ESL 2s, 3s, and 4s is the biggest list. And we try to get through there. There's not enough funding. We could open up some more classes, but we're funded based on the prior year's growth. And so, as you know, with the economy going up, jobs are easier for people to get, so not all the students are coming all the time because of their work. So then we don't capture every hour we could. But this year, core review is seeing tremendous growth. But our other sites might not be, like Pilgrim's Pride is way down. So we do our best. We partner a lot with Career Force, or Career Solutions, and they'll give us money to start new programs like the Coleman Project, where aged out students work for them, and we also provide classes. They give us the funding to start it up, so we don't have to worry about taking money away from our ABE classes.
Done. Monica? Al?
Thanks, Adam, for the presentation. Couple of different things. First of all, do you know when the ABE graduation is this year?
I do.
Can you say that, or?
No, but I'll get it to you tomorrow in an email.
Okay.
Oh, May 29th.
May 29th at the library?
Nope,
again?
this year we outgrew the library. So this year, as you know in the past, some of you have been here like longer than me. It moves around with our consortium. This year we were strategic, and it'll be at Sauk Rapids Middle School. Okay. So next year it can be part of all the fantastic things going on in our district, and it'll be at one of our local high schools.
Excellent. We've had it up there before, actually,
Yep.
At the Sauk Rapids.
Yep, they made a request that they wanted to start getting back in the rotation, and how full the library was. It made sense now as what's coming, especially for us with the new tech and the remodeled Apollo coming, that we get people in our buildings again.
Excellent. And so it's May 29th, and the public is invited to that?
Absolutely.
And that's one of the most fun graduations that you'll go to for the new board members. I always say this, but it's totally different than high school graduations, and it's just a lot of fun. So then for comments, I was just going to say, thanks for the work that you do in community education. Statutorily, it's separate from District 742 regular education, and it's funded separately through through the levies through the community. And there is a separate board, or I don't want to say governing board, but there's a separate board, the Community Education Advisory Committee, that meets several times a year and discusses different things going on within the community education world, and a number of community members have been on that committee. If anyone is out there that wants to join the committee, we are always looking for more members. It's a great opportunity to get in there, and you know, the fun thing with community education is there's really no limit to the world of possibilities, and anything can be done, but it needs to be requested. The state asks that we not duplicate for-profit programs out there, so if there's specific exercise classes going on in some for-profit facility, we aren't supposed to come in and undercut them as a community ed department and offer it this way, but it's to fill in gaps for things and services where there wouldn't be anyone there to fill that need. And community education is, a lot of times it's very kind of invisible within a community, but the amount of programming that goes on for, especially for people with specific needs, from ABE to people with all kinds of, people of all ages with disabilities, where you just wouldn't find that programming offered within a community if it wasn't for community ed, and it gives them a lot of things and a lot of ways to get out and participate in the community, and it's just a wonderful thing. But it takes an effort to make it happen, and it takes people to not only participate, but it takes people to operate and come up with ideas to continue to keep the program viable. I think it would be well within our parameters here to tell people also that one of the person that chairs the Community Education Advisory Committee is here, and he should probably be introduced. Scott Andreasen has been chairing that committee for the last couple of years. And it's not a huge commitment, but it takes a lot of commitment and a lot of time just to make sure that you make it to all of these meetings and you're prepared when you get there. And so thanks, Scott, for that effort. And that's about all I got on that one, I think. But community education is a very valuable piece of the educational network within the community, and it's not always just really visible to the community.
Well, I think you're totally right, and one nice thing you brought up is when Scott agreed to be our chairperson, we sat down and he had some specific things he wanted this year. First, we looked at our branding with Tammy and the bright colors and made sure that was excitable, and this year we're looking at each individual program, and Scott's been vital in making sure that we're following that, and very excited and appreciate all he's done for us. The other part you brought up is, you know, we offer so many things and we have so many options, but when you read our mission, and when Superintendent Jett asks me questions all the time, it's, you know, how are we going to create new things? How are you going to inspire our whole community? And this year with Lori and Marcia asking us to take community ed and partner more with learning and teaching to bring all that together. And even though it might be called One District, One Book, but anything we can do to help to get our community to help promote literacy and get the word out, and then to have the community donate that many books for a summer program really gets me excited, because coming only in my second year, we've been growing, but the nice part about our community and our district and Superintendent Jett is the fact that he's always trying, what more can we do? You know, we're all one district, we're going to inspire everybody. So that's been great that we can always partner with everybody.
Thank you. Natalie, you had a follow-up question?
Yeah, follow up on that. How can our community best volunteer with your programs? What are your highest needs right now?
Well, we always need tutors for ABE. We need people to teach classes. We have school board members who volunteer to do interviews, as you saw in the pictures. That program is awesome. We have a pen pal program with our elementary schools. So these are all programs a lot of communities, the community ed program wouldn't do, but the structure we have is, you know, we help with the Pen Pal program. We're helping with the high school with the interview project with Mr. Blattner. So it's just that we're always welcome. We're just one big family, but volunteers, teachers, if you have a specialty you'd like to do, please call. We'll see where it can fit in our district.
Shannon?
This might not be for you, maybe Tammy, those bright colors. How about those bright color winter stocking hats? In the first picture, they were red. Where can I get one of those?
That's a really good question.
Yeah.
For that particular program, as Adam mentioned, is new this year, and that was part. Do you want to?
Yeah, so part of the branding concept, their first performance was outside. So I wanted to make sure they were identified. So we ordered each student one hat and had it branded with the logo and made sure it matched. Asked everybody were was everything right with the colors. There was only one extra hat. All the hats have been accounted for, and that's Superintendent Jet, because we want him to promote the choir, because we want the choir to have more chances to sing at community events. So we want them to be easily identified. But you could maybe borrow his if you have a place to go.
Thank you, Adam. Any other questions? Willie?
Just a comment, so it's not a question. And Shannon, anytime you want that hat, you might have to fight my daughter for it. And the people from Apollo, they like that it's red, so they get into that. Mm-hmm. Okay. But what I wanted to say, and Adam alluded to it a little bit, it's his second year. And so I wanted to say to Adam and the entire community education department, just nice job. It's everybody in this room, I think, as you're listening to the presentation, as you ask questions, and as you're getting an understanding of it, it's a complex. It's super, super complex. And so to watch Adam and his department get their grasp around that, and then all the different partnerships that they're forming, and it's transforming. You can feel it within the last couple years. The one thing that Adam always, when we're having a meeting, we always talk about, as a district, about access and opportunity. And we talk about access and opportunity for all. And one of the best things about community ed, you can see it in the pictures that it's access and opportunity for all, but it's not just what you see there. You're looking at ages, you're looking at young kids, you're looking at 4, 5, 6-year-olds, all the way up to classes being offered for my mom would be upset with me, more experienced folks. And so it's just a nice wide range, and they do a nice job with that. So Adam, I just wanted to say you're here in front of the board having this conversation and getting some kudos, but also if your group or your department is actually listening, to make sure that we spread that word of thanks to your department also. Thanks.
All right, thank you, Adam. Next up on the agenda is American Indian Parent Advisory Committee Compliance Documentation by Lacey Locken, who is the supervisor of American Indian and Equity Programs.
Spring is all off to a great start. I'm going to try to work this well, so please give me some signal if I'm too close or too far away, because these terrify me a little bit. As per Minnesota statute, any school district who has over 10 students in their school board is required to have an American Indian Advisory Parent Committee. That parent committee has a unique role in advising schools on how, or ensuring really that our students have equitable and culturally relevant academic opportunities for academic success. One of the compliance portions for the state is that every year the parent committee has to make a vote on what they call concurrence or non-concurrence. That is then through our parent committee and presented to you. I want to introduce our American Indian Parent Committee Chairperson, Jim Knutson-Kalatsny. We're very fortunate to have his leadership and guidance, especially fortunate because he was instrumental in implementing and getting our American Indian program for St. Cloud started. This is my finishing out my third year with the district, and Jim has been amazing in many ways. He's the director of the American Indian Center at St. Cloud State University. So together we do a lot of partnering for activities, support, guidance, and he is in our schools all the time providing time and service, so we appreciate that. And I'm going to let him present the rest of the information.
I'd like to thank the school board for having me come in today and or giving time for me to do this presentation and the annual compliance overview. So I have a daughter, Zoe Knutson-Klodsny, is a senior at Apollo High School, and also had a son that went through K-12 in St. Cloud. So our family has had a wonderful experience with the St. Cloud School District. So according to the statute that we have to submit this, and I don't know if I turn it over right now or, and then they have questions or they have copies of this.
They do not, so you can just tell them that and then we can answer questions.
Okay, so the American Indian Parent Advisory Committee resolution. This is due in March. And so whereas the school board or district has an American Indian Parent Advisory Committee composed of parents, guardians of American Indian children are eligible for Indian Ed programs, American Indian language and culture teachers and professionals, American Indian teachers, American Indian counselors, American Indian adults enrolled in educational programming, and American Indian representatives from the community. Whereas the school board or the district affords the American Indian Parent Advisory Committee the necessary information and the opportunity to effectively express their views concerning all aspects of American Indian education and the education needs of the American Indian children enrolled in the school and programs. And whereas the American Indian Parent Advisory Committee is directly involved with and advises the school board and the district staff on Indian education programming and planning. Whereas the American Indian Parent Advisory Committee develops and submits recommendations to the school board, the district staff pertaining to the needs of American Indian students. Therefore, let it be resolved that the American Indian Parent Committee concurs that the school board and district are compliant with the Minnesota statute section 12.4D.78 and that the school board and district are meeting the needs of the American Indian students. So that's at the top, and what the Indian Parent Committee gets to decide whether you are concurrent or non-concurrent. And so our advisory committee met with the Indian parents, I think it was in that letter there, February 27th. We've been going over the American Indian Education Plan we have for this entire year. And these plans are based on the state funding and federal funding, which we have to submit in order to get the funding. And then it's all turned over to Lacey Lockin's office that, incorporates the programming, and to the school district. It's not just her doing the programming. There's a lot of teachers and staff involved in that too. And so as we monitor the progress through the Indian Education Plan, the committee talks about it on our monthly meetings, and we check the box. We, the American Indian Parent Committee, issue a vote of non-concurrence. We attest that the school board and or the district are not compliant with the Minnesota statutes, and that the school board and or district are not meeting the needs of American Indian students. We have provided written recommendations for improvements to the school board and acknowledge the school board has 60 days from the receipt of these recommendations in which to respond in writing to each of the recommendations. And then as chair, I print and sign my name. Now, what I want to explain is that not for the school board or the staff to take it personally, but to work on the issues. We're all in this mission together to get all our students to graduate. And if it was a perfect world and we didn't have achievement gaps for American Indian students, along with a lot of other issues, we would maybe, check concurrence. And when we get to that spot, then it'd be a great day. But right now we're working our way through the Indian Education Plan, and every year we write in degrees of improvement and have to show that to the federal government and to the state government that oversees our programs. So with that, I will submit the paperwork to you, and it also includes the roster of all the parents that were there, their titles, and their signatures. And then there's a form that goes with it for the school board to provide their response. So that's my duty. Any questions?
Lacey, you done with your part?
Unless there's questions
Okay.
for me, yeah.
Monica, looks like you're up.
Hi, Jim. Thank you for coming. I missed the punchline. So you said that we're not meeting the needs of American Indian students?
Right. Well, the Indian Parent Committee has to decide. And so Lacey and I are members of the American Indian Education Metro Gathering. It's about 25 school districts that come together 3 times a year, and we meet with all the other Indian parent chairpersons, or like her position, in school districts throughout the Twin Cities. And then we have a few surrounding ones that come in, like St. Cloud. And so we sit down and we talk about what it means to be concurrent in your Indian Ed programs in all these different schools. And so if we were graduating 100% of our American Indian students, if they had high literacy marks, if they were passing in math, if their attendance was perfect, you know, all these things are high benchmarks. And so when we look at our numbers, we're working towards that, but we're not there. And until we get there, we write non-concurrent. So it's just kind of like a report card. We haven't passed yet, but we're getting there, and we're working towards that. There's only concurrent or non-concurrent, and so it's only 1 or 2 answers.
Continue on, Monica.
So can you tell us a little bit more, what do we need to do to get there? And a little bit about benchmarks. You said that we're working towards it and we are getting there, but we're not there yet. If there is any specific that you can tell us about that, like in your estimates when we will get there. And I'm kind of to frame this question a little bit more. I understand that we have a very low population of American Indian students in our district. And I also understand that we have federal funding and extra funding to attend the need to these specific students. Mm-hmm. So what I wonder is that having that small population and that extra funding that is specific to those students, I mean, I will expect that we will be meeting those requirements quite easily since there are not other masses of students. So can you please elaborate a little bit more on that, about why we are not as good as I think that we are?
Well, you know, if you have 500 years and get coffee, we can talk about the education system in the United States and American Indian communities. So there's so many factors that you have to look at when you're looking at American Indian children going to public schools. 85% of all our American Indian children throughout the United States attend K-12 public schools. And so there's a cultural problem, there's assimilation, acculturation. So there's, most of our Indian children are behind even at preschool in reading and a recognition of words and counting, being ready for just entering preschool and in kindergarten. So they're behind and they have to catch up. Just having the staff not aware of American Indian culture, history, and language, those are other barriers that get in the way of education. Movement of Indian people. Our numbers go up and down a lot. And so from coming to the reservations to bigger cities like Minneapolis, St. Paul, and there's a path back and forth during the school year, during the year. So the kids are missing school and then back in. That's why attendance is an issue. So there's so many things that contribute to why education is not getting done. And those things happen in our school too. Parents don't have transportation, can't get the kids there. They keep them out because of cultural ceremonies like a funeral. They're gone for a while, and then they may be gone for a long time. And so it's interesting. on all these different factors. So the school district is doing what it can. And the state law says anytime there's 10 students, same thing with federal. Anytime there's 10 or more students in your whole district, you qualify for the funding. So the funding's not the issue, and the numbers, 10 aren't the issues. Just if there's just 10 students, we can't make all 10 successful. There's a lot of history that come with those 10. And so but we have more than to win. We have 205, around there.
Yeah, so that
there's another issue.
Well, it is an issue actually, because if you look at the MDE report card, since they made the transition to 2 or more races, a lot of our students got transitioned into that category. And so on MDE's website, you're unable to disaggregate to see which students are American Indian. So there's the numbers, which is therein lies part of the challenge as well. So if you look at that number, it gives you like 50-some students. If you look at our local number, it gives like 147 students. If you look at our federal number, it gives us about 246 students. So as a program, we consider all of our students, right? Because that's who we're here for, regardless of which box they fit into and how they're counted by government entities. However, and also the newness of the program too is a challenge, because since our numbers, we are considered statistically insignificant to many people because our numbers aren't often shown. Our data isn't shown because of privacy issues, because our cell sizes are usually too small. So just to get recognized and to get seen is a big deal. And then when we start to actually pull back the layers to see where our kids are struggling and see if there's any trends that we can identify, so we can have interventions in place and how we can support our kids in the best way for academic success, it just sort of takes some time to uncover those and to be, to be effective. So we're trying.
Mm-hmm. And in our program, we're trying to hire. I work at St. Cloud State University and director of the Indian Center. We have 165 American Indian students at St. Cloud State, and we contact some of those students to see if they want to mentor in the schools, in the K-12 areas. And we had 2 or 3 last semester, and we have some more that are interested this spring semester. So we're trying to do as much as we can. One of the things is making students be successful is educating the teachers, and it's amazing how many of our teachers aren't aware of the tribes in Minnesota. I don't know how many people on the school board know how many tribes are in Minnesota. Do you know?
Give you a close guess. Would that be
Okay, it's real easy.
I'm gonna say 12.
No, there's only 2. And so there's only 2 tribes. And so a lot of people get it. Even our president, when he gave a speech, our past president, he was really proud to honor the American Indians, and his speechwriter got it wrong, so he got it wrong. And so us Indians in the crowd were going, oh, well, okay. And that's the thing, is that educating the staff, the teachers, administrators, is really a task we have to do in order to start teaching our own kids in the school district. And so that's what we've been working on in our Indian education program, and then bringing in elders or authors or educators, American Indian, into the classrooms. Today I visited Talahi, and I was over there doing a program for an hour with the 5th grade class, which I'd never ever want to teach. And so there's a lot of energy. But we're learning about the native sky watchers or native stars. And so it's a really good way to meet the standards, because for the last 8 years, Minnesota Department of Education has rewritten all the education standards and requires every teacher in Minnesota, K-12, teach Dakota and Ojibwe in their classroom at some time. Well, our current and new teachers panic because they go, I don't know anything about Dakota or Ojibwe. And so where do I learn this stuff? And so that's where Indian Ed programs, like what Lacey is running and design, and Indian parent committees come together and help. And so we have training, or we buy materials to bring our teachers up to speed, because our math teachers, our Phi-Ed, our language arts, our music teachers, all are required to teach Dakota and Ojibwe perspectives at some point in the school year. It's not all year long, it's just we're going to bring it up, and this is what the indigenous people of Minnesota used to do. but they have to learn that themselves. And so when students who are in the classroom see or learn about their own culture, of course it improves retention or their excitement, or they want to learn, or they're learning about themselves, and this is how we keep working towards that target of everybody achieving. And so I'm not in the classrooms every day, so I don't have statistics like Lacey does, but I've had the examples of talking to other parents and then my own children in the school. So I don't know how soon we can get to that high achievement. I don't think in my lifetime, because I've been in Indian Ed for 30 years, and we've been doing this same program year after, or every 10 years it's a cycle, and we come back and do it again, find funding and do it again, and keep building it throughout all of Minnesota and Wisconsin when I was over there. So it's going to be a while, but we're still working on it, and that's what I like about this school district.
Al?
I'm wondering, on the committee that meets down at MDE down there, is there any school districts that participate that are meeting the expectations, or are all school districts not meeting? And the reason that I ask is not to be critical of it. The reason that I ask is there a district out there that we could look to as a model district, or that we do look to as a model district in completing the completing, not expectations, but completing the goals of the program?
Yes, in Red Wing Public Schools, they work with the Director of Education at the Prairie Island Indian Reservation in Red Wing, and we did one of our teacher trainings. St. Cloud State does teacher training so that all the teachers that come to our week-long training on our Indian reservation learn history, language, and culture, and then at the end of the week, they have to present what they learned that week. We don't just send teachers to a conference and said, well, that was nice. They have to actually present, get comfortable with the material so they can teach it when they get back in the classroom. And so when we went to Red Wing, Paul Dressen, the Indian Ed director, paid for all the teachers, and the superintendent at that school district paid for all the teachers to go to this training. And so his graduation rate was 98%. So his is an excellent model because the Indian Parent Committee is strong. They're in the schools, they border a reservation, and so they do a lot of work back and forth together. And so what we have at St. Cloud is that our children, Indian children, come from a lot of different places. And the closest reservation is Mille Lacs, an hour away. And sometimes we've taken St. Cloud students all up to the Mille Lacs to see the museum. Other times we've had them at our planetarium on our university looking at the native star constellations. So there is some involvement, but not so much with the reservations as it is in Prairie Island. But Red Wing. Red Wing's an excellent school. North St. Paul is another excellent school for Indian education. They've been at it a long time, maybe 20, 30 years, and those are the people that hold the metro meetings and give us advice. This advice they've been collecting for 30 years on Indian education. And because our first year we did this grant, we didn't know what we were doing. So the first year, St. Cloud School District was in compliance. And then we went and met with other people, and they go, really? So how's that happening? Because we want to, like you, want to look at St. Cloud. If they're in compliance, we want to see what they're doing. Well, we weren't doing anything. We just wrote the grant, and the Indian Parent Committee didn't know what they're doing because we had to be educated ourselves and go, oh, that's what that means. Because compliance means you're meeting 100% of all the goals, or you're really successful or close to it. And so that's not us. So we want to take an accurate picture and saying, this is where we are, this is where we need to go, and let's work towards it.
Les, and then Monica.
How you doing?
Pretty good.
Good to see you again.
Nice seeing you, Les.
I have a pretty pointed question for you. Is there, if you compare, we have a research person, Dr. Sylvia Huff, and in some way to find a way that we can set a standard that indicates compliance for the American Indian students that would mirror the compliance for other students, so that the compliance standard that you indicated, and my hearing's not as well, but I thought you said that all of them had to be achieving at the highest level.
It's not required. It's just like what the Indian Parent Committee as a group saying, this is where we want to go, and in order to be in compliance, we have to at least be closer than what we are now. So definitely we can say today we're not there. Who knows? Maybe when we get even closer on some of the measurements, we can say, hey, we're getting almost there. I mean, it's going to be a judgment call for a group of parents on how the school district is doing. We're relying on statistics and achievement levels of our Indian students, and saying, like when we had that literacy score, it was based on 3 students for that one grade, wasn't it? And we were like 100%, oh, that's great, but that's only 3 in that one grade, because that's all the Indian students we had in that grade. And so that means we're doing fine there, but when we look at the other marks, they're not even close. And so we can't make one check mark for the entire education program based on 3 students. Right. So there are, is there something that we know when we're there? How do we know when we got to the end result, So is there like a line that we can measure it against?
Well, the question really has to do with saying, articulating a point or statement that says, when we have achieved 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 with American Indian students, we're in compliance. We can always grow from there, but we are doing what is humanly possible, and not an impossible utopian standard.
Right.
Which means we can keep moving forward in everybody's, so somewhere in that neighborhood, I guess, talking. But that's good. I mean, I get it. I think.
Well, it's based on what is the Indian education plan. Yes. And so because we meet and go, what's possible that we can do? And and when the first year when Lacey was hired, we just had to educate everybody that we have an Indian ed person. And she spent a lot of her time going to all the schools in the district, meeting the staff and administrators, introducing herself, and go, oh, you're brand new. I didn't know, we didn't know we had Indian students in our school. So some of it is, boy, we really concur that first year because we met our goals, 100%, getting her out there and introducing Indian parents and meeting the school board that year. So yeah, it depends on what the Indian education plan is all about.
Well, part of the standard for me is the information available to all of the students about American Indians. As we teach about the history of America, does that history denigrate American Indians as when we are teaching it? And that's one of the issues, I think. In the library, and I think you were at the meeting when I pulled the books of, I can't think of the person's name, but we had a number of children's books in the library at Madison that were very disrespectful of American Indian people, and we didn't know it. And
my kids went there, and actually, that about 4 years ago, our first effort, we brought in Darlene St. Clair. Dr. St. Clair is St. Cloud State, member of Lower Sioux Reservation, and her degree is in library science. She went to Madison and identified all the books that we probably shouldn't be on the shelves, and then helped provide book titles for the library. But it was only one school of all the libraries in St. Cloud School District. So it's efforts like that we work together.
And the care is to not necessarily remove those books, but to put them in a place so that we can teach from them and explain to people why they do what they do.
Right.
We get into censorship issues, but the point is to say this is what's wrong with the book.
Right. It's a bias bag, and it's activity we teach the teachers. We give them one of those books and go, okay, identify what this is all about.
I see you're still as good a man as you always have been.
I just wanted to add in there that we do work incredibly close with Dr. Huff. She's amazing with all of her data that she helps provide us. But our Indian Education Plan is very much aligned with World's Best Workforce. So a lot of the plans overall, as we work for equity in the district, it aligns. So our goals are similar. So when we're reviewing data, we do have a baseline to see where our students are in comparison to other students. So.
Yeah, let me just finish and I'll stop. We will need that at some point. We will need data that says this is where we were, this is where we are now, and we're moving in the right direction, because somebody may not be as agreeable in terms of working with us on that. And so having some ability to articulate clearly where we were, where we are now, and where we're going may, in a court of law, be very important.
Right. Excellent. I know when I about 2 years ago, I finished my dissertation, and it was on the acculturation of American Indian students in higher education. And one of the results was that the stronger you are in your own culture, no matter what culture it is, the more confidence you have, the better you do in school. And so that was also supported by all other research that was out there since the 90s, probably. Before that, it was blend in, don't make waves, don't say anything, just get through school. And so what we try to do, and 2 years ago, last year we were snowed out, but 2 years ago, St. Cloud Tech, St. Cloud State University, and the Independent School District 742 came together for the powwow. And I'm proud to say that it's Lacey's, or it's going to be at Lacey's School District or Independent School District 742 at Apollo High School, April 13th. And so we have these flyers all over town, in all the schools. We had Sauk Rapids stop by the Indian Center today, pick up flyers, because our head dancer used to go to, he's a senior at Sauk Rapids, now he's at St. Cloud State, and they want the school to get involved. Sauk Rapids wants to get involved what we're doing in Indian education in St. Cloud, because they have Indian students over there, but they don't have a program. And so they're always looking to us and working with us over here. So I wasn't aware if the school board knew we're doing the powwow. So.
Lori?
I want to come back to the data piece, because I think it's really important that you know that we do look at that data. We're very careful when we share it publicly. Because of the low numbers, we don't want to give away any identifying information, but we continually look at every single student, and we look specifically at our American Indian students, even though it doesn't publicly come up on a lot of our charts. So I just want to make sure that everybody knows that is something that Dr. Sylvia Huff pulls for us, and we look at really closely.
You had another question?
So one comment before my question, following up what you were saying, Les. In terms of history and books, one thing that came to my mind when you were speaking is about the Capitol, the pictures, the paintings that are in our state capitol that are denigrating and not good of Native Americans. There is a whole room that I would recommend everybody to visit. They have explanations from different scholars about, and different people from Native communities about why they are problematic. So they're not removed from the Capitol as being part of our history, but there are explanations about why those pictures will be problematic, and Darlene St. Clair is featured in several of those explanations as well. So we have our own person from St. Clair State on that. Also, I learned that since we have a lieutenant governor that is Native American, there is some pictures that have been removed or covered in the Capitol State Building because of this. So that actually takes me to my point, because I wanted to see if I learned anything with my question and when I ask you. So let me see if I got what you were saying. And Willie, pay attention here, because it's going to be a question for you, I think. So what I'm understanding that is necessary to be compliant with Native Americans is not only that the Native Americans students have their own focus in their own education with a specific tutoring or opportunities for them, but that is also important that there is a general cultural understanding there is a general cultural understanding by the entire population of teachers and students about what the history of Native Americans have been in this community or in this country for the last 500 years, which takes me to the question for Willie. Given that we have a small population of students and we get funding for that small population of students, which is around 200 students more or less, given or take whatever statistic you take, but we need to do this within the curriculum for 10,000 students. I see ourselves in disadvantage about what this funding is being used. So how do we incorporate this curriculum base for the rest of the 10,000 students in our district? So is that a fair representation?
I can answer that. Federal and state funds are allocated only for our American Indian students, and they are to supplement and not supplant any kind of funding used for education. So when these grants come in, they work to, on our they're for our Indian education plan for students. We write the plan so that there's opportunities for teachers to learn alongside with those American Indian students. And so, like I said, it doesn't supplant anything. It's just supplements it. And so we can't use the federal or state funds to educate the 10,000, but we can help get teachers educated, and that way they work towards those goals that you're talking about, educating the rest. And so it's a big job to turn this all around. And so our grant money is just, like I said, used for the Indian children, but I don't know if there's no teeth or funding to the new standards coming down from Minnesota Department of Education. They require all these teachers to do it, but they don't have funding for them to learn Dakota and Ojibwe. And so it relies on Indian Ed programs, equity offices, school districts to determine if they're going to meet those standards. And so that may take a while and take other funding. So.
Natalie?
Yeah, thank you for being here today, and I've heard so much about you in the community, Jim, so it's nice to kind of meet you. I am highly concerned about hearing that we're in noncompliance. Thank you for taking the time to explain kind of what that all is about. I heard you say that we have made some growth in some areas, and I don't know if this would be available through our data, but I'm wondering, this is a yearly presentation that happens, right? I'm wondering if next year we could see some baseline data or see the data of what areas we are growing in and see how much farther we have to go. I, as a school board member, would really like to know that.
Yeah, and I imagine if because of the reports we have to write for both state and federal grants, you just compare the two and we can easily arrive at that data.
That's great.
I just wanted to add that depending on the number of students we have, it still might not be able to share that publicly for privacy for our students.
Okay.
So, but we would have it in district.
Yes, just not publicly at a board. This kind of a level. Yeah. Yes, thank you, Lacey. The other thing I wanted to talk about was teacher education on this issue. I'm a co-facilitator for the CARE workshop at St. Cloud State, Community Anti-Racism Education, and we do those a couple times a month during the school year, and we've had ABE teachers come and as well other 742 staff, and it's amazing to me because we do spend about 15 minutes going through our history of how racism was built into our laws as a country, and one of the things we highlight is the horrific act that happened to our Native brothers and sisters in Mankato. And we tried to do a hand show of how many people knew nothing about this. And I would say not hard data, data, but over half of any class that we have has no idea what happened in our Minnesota history. And personally, for me, in my Minnesota history class when I was my kids' age, I remember learning things that were categorically untrue about American Indians, and I of course hope that that doesn't happen in our schools, but not that I can do anything about it right now, but I just really have seen the growth of people when they come to not just that workshop, but any workshop where the truth is shared about our unfortunate past, so that we can learn from what has happened so we don't ever repeat those mistakes again.
Well, thank you. And I've learned there are many truths from very different perspectives, because a lot of people believe they're true. I mean, their truth in their beliefs.
Right.
And so today at Talahi, when that little 5th grade girl came up, or she raised her hand and said, I don't think the Indians are around anymore. Is there any place we can see them? And I said, well, look at me. I said, I'm here. And so that's the point. Our Indian population is small. We're probably about 85 to 90,000 in a state of 4.5 million.
Right.
So it's, you know, we're a small portion, but a big part of the history here.
Yeah, I'm wondering if there's someone who could maybe talk either now or later on to share with me what, as a district, we do specifically for teacher education around American Indian issues or history. She says yes later. Okay,
Lori
thank
said
you.
yes.
Thank you, Larry.
Les, you had another question?
Yeah, I want to be as clear as I can with this. What I was looking for was the teacher and district standards. What should the district do this year to be in compliance with a growth concept, not student performance?
Right.
Because I understand that's a different issue, and I would much rather argue the point that our teachers should be learning to do certain kinds of things and be able to perform those duties at a certain level that would then indicate we are in compliance. The term non-compliance, based upon the outcome of every American Indian student in the district, is going to be difficult to even come close to. And so a standard that tells our teachers they are doing well, moving in the right direction, that they are not in non-compliance because they have studied and they've understood and they've worked towards something, is, I think, a level that we could reach or agree on with the parents, that the parents could say, yes, you are moving in the right direction. Yes, you've accomplished what we wanted you to accomplish this year. And so now let's set another goal for next year. That would seem to be a way that we could argue that we're in compliance, rather than have to just base it on solely on student performance.
Right, and last year we brought in speakers, American Indian professionals, to talk to the teachers. We held these programs after school or on service days, and I don't know if it was optional for teachers to sign up. And so, you know, we had some attendance.
We could fix that.
Yeah, and so that's the thing, is that they have to take their own self-assessment to know how much they know about American Indians and be able to feel comfortable enough in the classroom to start teaching that, especially about Dakota and Ojibwe. I had an art teacher from Talahi call me up and said, Jim, these new standards, I've always taught American Indian art, but it was Navajo. Now I need Dakota and Ojibwe. And he goes, you know, I need Dakota or Ojibwe artists. I said, sure. And but he was panicking about the standards. And I said, where'd you get your teaching license? And he goes, St. Cloud State. I go, oh. So because then I went to St. Cloud State and I said, how come we're not teaching our teachers Dakota and Ojibwe? Because those are the standards they have to meet. And the provost at that time said, we keep adding more classes to their degree, they'll never get out of here. And so they need to get this stuff post-graduation from, the experts. So that's the thing, is that like that school district, Red Wing, when they paid for all their teachers to go, they have that built in because they're a border town. They live right there, right next to the reservation. And so it's, the commitment of the school district, the city, the community. And we thought the powwow will bring more of the community together. And I really like that new name we got on the new street at Costco. Did you guys read about that in the paper? Mayor Kleiss called me and said, Jim, we got a new street in St. Cloud. We want to name it Anishinaabe Way. And he goes, what do you think about that? And I said, well, I'm Anishinaabe. I said, oh, that sounds really nice, but I think we should honor the homeland of the people who's here. And he goes, oh, what's that? And I said, Minnesota Makoche. That's Dakota for this is Minnesota. And he goes, oh, okay. So he took that to the city council, and we got the new sign. So now there's a new sign where we're honoring the people who are here. Again, a part of the community being educated. So I hope to get teachers somehow, whether we find funding or more encouragement, but we need to be in service. When they are in, getting learning opportunities when the kids aren't in school, can we get our instructors in there to teach them on site and not rely on them going somewhere during the summer? They want their summers off just like anybody else. But so whatever opportunity we can do to increase, I'm all for it, and I'm sure the other Indian parents are too.
I think it's my turn. I got two things. Educate me. Saw a fantastic movie. Can you talk about, is it Code Breakers?
All right.
What Native American Indian tribe was very important in World War II with the radio code?
Well, I know it's the Navajo because that's really the simple question or the answer that everybody knows, but people are unaware that it was also Dakota people from Lower Sioux and Upper Sioux here in Minnesota that were part of the Code Talkers. And
that's it, Code Talkers.
That movie, yeah.
Again, it's Hollywood.
It's in 1989, Indian people finally stepped up because we would ask people in K-12, teachers, students, citizens across Wisconsin and Minnesota, Dr. St. Clair and I, where did you learn about Indians? And most of them from movies. Yeah. And so people can tell me what movie I'm going to go, oh, okay. But in 1989, it was finally the first major motion picture made by Indians, directed by Indians, acted by Indians, and it was Smoke Signals. And so that's the movie that we put out there a lot to educate people. And it's Indian people talking about Indian people instead of non-natives trying to make a movie about Indians. And so it's a wonderful start, but now there's been many more movies out all the time. We have an American Indian Awareness Week before the powwow at Apollo, and during that week we do a first-run movie that's made out in Hollywood about Indians by Indians. And so we'll be doing that week and bringing in Vanessa Goodthunder to speak about revitalizing the language, on the Lower Sioux Reservation. So we have activities all week long that lead up to the powwow at Apollo.
Second thing I wanted to do was I'm ex-Air Force and ex-Army, and I want to thank you for your service.
Oh, okay,
That's huge.
Yeah, it was 49 years ago, so it's a long time ago.
So 49 years, that makes you 57? You went in 12
well,
maybe? Anybody else have any questions? Willie, anything? All right, thank you very much for a great presentation.
And who do I leave?
Thank you. And just before we leave, I wanted to publicly thank Jim because he's retiring this year. He seems very sad about it, I know, but he's been a tremendous support for us, so I just wanted to give him a shout out.
49 days left. Zoe graduates from, I think, May 31st. Yes. I didn't know about the snow day, but the graduation is still the same, and so I'm all excited. So my last day is
Do you
May
need
31st.
any volunteer forms? You'll have lots of time on your hands. Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I'm working with Lacey.
Yeah, he's retired from St. Cloud State, not from us.
Okay, next up on the agenda is District 742 Retiree Recognition, done by Tammy Delan. Community engagement is just an update, Tammy.
We are having a retirement recognition. It is coming up in June this year. Is it on the agenda by chance? Thank you. Thank you. June the 6th. We moved it this year into June. It historically has been in May, but what we found is that we miss quite a few retirements. They come in right at the last minute, and then they end up getting recognized almost a full year later. So you are all invited. In fact, we count on you coming and helping us recognize this year's retirees. And this year it will be at the new district administration office.
Thank you. Next up is appoint board members to award diplomas at Apollo and Tech, done by the board chair. I am happy to announce that we will be having Chair Al and our board member Al and board member Natalie will be doing Apollo, and at Tech, Zach and Les are going to be doing the diplomas. Thank you all for volunteering for that. After that, we have item E, proposed new board policy number 496, first reading, School Employee Code of Ethics by Dr. Marcia Beisch, Assistant Superintendent.
I almost said good morning. Good evening, Chair Rice, Superintendent Jett, and members of the board. The policy that you have before you, School Employees Code of Ethics, is very similar to the what was put into policy 306. However, this was what language that was written into the guidelines for board governance, but wanted to ensure that it was not just in there, but also was in policy so that all employees were aware of the code of ethics that we expect employees to abide by. So the language was language that former board member board member Von Korf had developed, and so that language was just pulled pretty much from the guidelines and put into policy format and language, and that's what you have in front of you. So if you have any questions, I'm happy to entertain those.
Seeing no questions, you want to jump on? Oh, Monica has one.
So, I'm sorry, kind of missed the place of the policy, but I'm a little confused with this policy because I'm really not understanding it. So it says that the purpose of the policy is ensure that the district employees conduct the affairs of the district in accordance with the law. Is that?
With law, so law, not just, law in general, district policy and high ethical standards.
So
not doing anything illegal or against the law, we would expect that our employees would conduct themselves in a manner in which they are abiding by the law, by all legal standards.
So, in other words, the purpose of this policy is so it's stated someplace that we comply with the law and legal standards. Is that the sense?
That's the purpose of this policy, is to let our employees know that that's the expectation.
Because we were not doing that?
No, it's not to say we were not doing that, but we want to ensure that we are doing that. Sure.
This did exist, but it was in the governance policy.
Or guide. Yeah.
Right, and so there was a lot of discussion over, is the governance policy actually a policy?
Right.
And in the creation of this, this wording in here, they believed that it was a district policy, and we were kind of in disagreement that the governance policy wasn't a school district policy, so we moved it out of there and put it in the school board policies.
Into policy.
Okay, thank you for the background. I think that is important. I still don't find the kind of the meat of the policy. I still don't find what our intent is when we, I mean, if you don't comply with the law, there are specific consequences about not complying with the law. So do we need to specifically put a policy about that so we also get consequence at the school about not following this? So I'm looking at this as if I don't know anything about the school and I just run through this policy, am I going to dismiss it because it really doesn't feel like it adds anything, or I have to pay attention to what is inside the policy, and I still really confused about what is inside the policy because I still don't find the meat of it.
So
Natalie, you're first.
I think that this is a little bit of my confusion about this as well, what Monica is stating. And I remember when we talked about that, how we were going to pull it out so that it would be policy. The words that concern me are high ethical standards. That's really subjective. It reminds me of when someone can't be a citizen of our country unless they are a person of good moral character, whatever that means. So, and what it means is different to each person. So my question is kind of the same, like, is this just like how do I say it in a nice way? Like just to cover ourselves in case something happens? Or what is the goal of this if it's not that?
There are, and I'll look to Tracy if I'm not using the accurate language, but there are professional standards that each of so principals have professional standards by which they are required to practice. Each of us within our departments has professional standards by which we are required to practice. So that rather than putting all of that language, that is what this is implying, that we all are practicing and doing our work within those high ethical standards that are expected of us within the realm in which we operate and we're licensed within.
I totally understand that. I think maybe from a governance perspective, I'm not understanding why we have to have a policy that says that. Maybe that's my inexperience as a board member, but.
some of this I can answer from history. I'm sitting over here listening to everybody say over and over they don't understand. The meat of this policy does not have anything to do with the meeting the operating under the, in accordance with the law or at a high ethical standard. That's all through our policies. And it's, I mean, we don't need to have a policy that says you have to follow the law. The law says you have to follow the law. The meat of this policy is in the third paragraph, and the reason that this was written is in the third paragraph, and it's the part where it says executive directors and other administrators will have a primary duty to the board to provide timely and accurate information to the board. And what that is written there for is there was a time many years ago, many superintendents ago, so I'm not pointing at Mr. Jett, where we had superintendents who would make little side deals that were very pertinent, and no one on the board would be informed about it. And then we'd have a problem down the road, and people would come back and say, well, I had a deal with the superintendent on this. And the members of the board would go, how could you have that? We don't know about that. Well, we had a deal together, and you know, it's legal and it's okay. It's, you know, there's nothing wrong with this. This here was written and put into policy several years ago to prevent that. So if there was a side deal made, it had to be reported to the board, and it was the responsibility of the superintendent and the executive directors to report that in a truthful and timely manner to the board so that we would be able to act on it before the problems arose. That's the meat of this policy, and that is nowhere else in our policy manual, and that's why we needed, since we were eliminating it from the code, from the guidelines, we need to bring it back into a policy so that it is there, if that helps.
Thank you, Al.
Les, you're next.
I agree with Al, and I was here when this was a problem. And in the side deal, let me make it a little clearer. Superintendents would enter into contractual agreements with administrative staff that provided salaries and packages of retirement packages that were substantial, that the board did not know about. And when the board asked for that information, there was nowhere in our policy that required the superintendent to give us that information. This was simply a method and the reality is if you take it to court and the judge says, where does it say in your policy that they have to give you the information? It does not. This is put in there so that if the judge says, where is it in your policy, we can say, right there. And it wasn't done, goodbye. So I think it removes some ambiguity that's always a difficult issue under the law. And unless what I'm not understanding myself is there the problem? Is if you read the policy, where is the problem inside of that policy for anyone that we don't understand?
Shannon?
If there is.
She's after you. You good?
Well, yeah.
I kind of wanted to respond to the question that Les has about what is the problem with the policy. So if the point of the policy goes in the third line of the purpose, I mean in the third line of the, sorry, lose it again. In the third part of the how we get compliance to it, I really think that I would like better a different title or a different purpose for the policy. If the problematic pieces of this have to do with communication with the superintendent, executive directors, and other administrators, primarily with I think that we should have a policy about communication and not a policy about ethic. So I still think that the way that the policy is constructed is not clear. And I also think that if you are going to skim through the policies, you should find the meat of the policy within the purpose of it. And the purpose of this policy, according to what I understand from alt explanation, is about communication of a staff to the board.
It's about assurance of compliance and communication and awareness of the board. It's to ensure that the board is aware of things that are happening within the district. That's the purpose of it.
So it should be in the purpose.
And I'm fine with that. If we want to rewrite the purpose statement, I think it probably should be.
That's kind of the beauty of a first read. Yep. Good. Duly noted. Any other? Okay. Would you jump right into the summary of the work session, please?
Absolutely, I'd be happy to. So the March 6th work session included a Wilson update. Amy Scalroot, along with Gary Ganji, Executive Director of Operations, and Amy, Executive Director of Finance, provided the backstory regarding the Wilson property. Gary shared information regarding renovations that would be needed in order to bring the building up to code for accessibility, as well as repairs that would be needed. Amy discussed whether this would be a needed site from an operations standpoint, noting that the recent demographer's report indicated that there's not an anticipated significant elementary growth in that area to substantiate another elementary school. And also from a programming standpoint, the administration has determined internally that there is not a need for the building, and the Board Finance and Audit Committee decided to bring the sale of and process for selling the building to the full board in terms of next steps. It was noted that the Wilson neighborhood had invited Chair Polreis as well as Matt Glazman from the City of St. Cloud to attend their meeting on March 9th, at which they were to discuss the future of Wilson site and the rezoning possibilities. After extensive discussion, board members agreed that subsequent to the meeting on Saturday, the 9th, Chair Polreis will share a summary report with board members and the Board Finance and Audit Committee, which will which met on March 15th to discuss and develop a recommendation for listing and obtaining proposals for the property to bring forward to the full board on March 20th. The second item on the agenda was the Clearview Elementary School presentation. Principal Sherry Reuter welcomed everyone and noted that it was her privilege to lead Clearview for the past several years. Clearview serves pre-K through grade 5 with approximately 420 students and is inclusive of preschool and a Spanish immersion program. Clearview staff are incredibly dedicated to students, families, and the Clearview community. And Sherry noted that through data teams and professional development work that takes place every Wednesday, staff are at work creating best possible solutions for learning for students at Clearview. Principal Reuter noted that Clearview is a state-recognized PBIS school, and students care by being kind, responsible, and safe, and that each month they recognize students in every classroom of those that go above and beyond those expectations. Partnerships are truly what make Clearview special, and Sherry shared a multitude of those, including a mural partnership with the McKinley Area Learning Center, PTA and local business partnerships, including St. Benedict's Center and Talahi Care Center partnership, whereby fourth graders, through an intergenerational reading program, work with members at that care center. The Sherburne County Sheriff's Department partners with fifth graders and a program called Kids' Choice, which teaches students about making positive choices. Retired teachers come to Clearview to tutor once they've retired. The Amity program partners with all Clearview, particularly the immersion classrooms, to bring cultural experiences to the school. And the Clearview Forest brings many partnership opportunities that create a magnificent learning space for students, including the local state and DNR, Boy Scouts, Eagle Scouts, Tech High School School Industrial Tech Program, and the Clear Lake and Clearwater community and Clearview families. Sherry talked about Morning Mile, which is a school-wide program started by George Benusa, Clearview's PE teacher. Every morning, students walk the baseball field or the halls to get ready mentally and physically for learning. Principal Reuter also shared some positive in Clearview's math and reading test scores. The third item on the agenda was the new Tech High School update. Kyle Walter, on-site project manager for ICS Consulting, along with David Leopold, architect for IIW Minnesota, and Principal Charlie Eisenreich, presented an update on the progress of the new Tech High School. Principal Eisenreich shared that a representative from Cunningham Architects met with students to show them the interior color schemes, furniture, and furnishings for the new high school. Meetings with staff were also held to review the furniture features they selected, and Principal Eisenreich has also met with the architect regarding signage for the building. Principal Eisenreich provided an update on scoreboard, stating that the activities director, David Langerud, has been able to secure the first long-term contract and hopes to secure more. A moving plan is currently underway, and the plan is to have staff pack up their classroom supplies on the last day of school. Kyle reported on the construction progress at the site, shared interior photos as well as a drone video and a budget update. Thank you.
Any questions? Thank you, Marcia. We're going to go off script a little bit. I want to introduce another guest that happens to be in the audience. Sarah, would you mind coming up? Please take some time, introduce yourself, and...
Okay. Good evening, Chair Polrice, Superintendent Jett, members of the board. My name is Sarah Mueller, and I am a reporter with WJON. I've been with Town Square Media for the last 6 months, so I'm still learning. This is my first school board meeting, so go easy on me. I'm a 2012 graduate of Tech High School and a 2016 grad of Augsburg College in Minneapolis.
Fantastic. Anyone have any questions? It actually is the other way around. You need to be our friend.
Oh, okay.
Because we're always going to be your friend.
Works for me.
Anyone have questions? Thank you. Welcome.
Thank you.
All right, next up, we have a trifecta. Gary Ganji, Executive Director of Operations. First up is the bid award, New Tech High School Network Equipment and Bid Package for Technology.
Good evening. Your agenda packet will say that Amy Scullerud is presenting this evening. Obviously, I'm not Amy. Amy had hoped to be here tonight, and she asked me to stand in, so I hope I do her presentation justice here. This evening, we are going to, the first two items have to do with expenditures for the New Tech High School. Want to just go through what we're going to be talking about, and then we'll get to the specifics. So for the new tech, when it comes to the technology piece, we have $2,925,000 budgeted. We have really four main items. One would be the security package, which we'll be talking about second. Security package includes surveillance cameras, access control, intrusion detection, those types of things. The second one would be the network equipment. That's what helps us to connect everything, whether it be the wireless access or the wired access. So this would be the electronics for that. Then we have technology equipment, which we often refer to as AV equipment, and then we have the phone system. So the first item that we would like to address tonight has to do with the network equipment and the AV equipment. The administration recommends that the Board of Education award the bids for New Tech High School network equipment and bid package 4 technology as follows. Network equipment to Appoint Networks in the amount of $243,371.43 based on low bid received meeting specifications. And bid package 4 technology to Video Services Incorporated in the amount of $1,618,770.09 based on low bid received meeting specifications.
Anybody have any questions? Les?
Will the stuff work?
Yes.
Good.
Okay. Anybody else? All right. Jump on to the next one, please, Gary.
Do you want, that's a,
It's an action
it's an
item.
action item.
Yeah.
Jeff, I would
Let's do them
move that we accept the bid award for technology and networking equipment at the New Tech High School bid package number 4.
I second.
Seconded by Monica. Les, would you call roll on that one?
Jeff Polrice,
Yes.
Monica Segura-Schwartz,
Yes.
Zach Dorholt,
Yes.
Shannon Hawes,
Yes.
Les Green is yes, Al Dahlgren,
Yes.
Natalie Ringsmuth.
Yes.
The second piece of the technology budget that we're asking for action on this evening has to do with the security package. This comes to you as a change order, and I need to give you a little bit of context on that. If you recall, a little over a year ago, we came to this body and we talked about the need for some of our systems to be able to work together. These are enterprise systems, they're the phone system, security systems, and the security would be the video surveillance, but we want the same equipment in all buildings. Well, we were putting up Quarry View and we were doing the new DAO at the time, so we needed to act on that at that point. So at that point, we were able to put these systems in and get the equipment for those two buildings. This evening, what we're doing is we're coming to you for the equipment for that security package for tech. We didn't do it last year at this time because the equipment would be a year old. We want the newest and best equipment at the time. And so that's why you see this as a change order tonight. Wanted to point that out because it's almost $600,000. It's just that we didn't purchase that before, but it needs to come to you as a change order. There's also 3 other change orders this evening that are not technology related. One has to do with concrete in the floor joists of the auditorium. Another one has to do with moving some thermostats. And the third one has to do with some granite for the wall right outside the administrative office. All much smaller amounts than that initial one. So we would entertain a motion for the approval of all these change orders.
So I would move that we approve the Tech High School new site change orders totaling plus $604,183.68.
Do I have a second? Les? Okay. Would you take roll, please, then, Les?
Monica Segura Schwartz.
Yes.
Shannon Hawes.
Yes.
Les Green is yes. Al Dahlgren.
Yes.
Natalie Ringsmuth.
Yes.
Zach Dorhold.
Yes.
Jeff Polreis.
Yes.
All right, and the third and final item I have for you this evening has to do with authorization of the sale of the Wilson building. And I know board members received the background information, but since this has been an agenda item on many meetings for a number of years, I'm going to read the background information because it has some detailed information from the finance meeting this past week. The district has determined that it does not intend to use the Wilson building for any future programming. The board discussed the future of the property at the board work session on March 6, 2019, and agreed to move forward with selling the property. The Board Finance and Audit Committee discussed the sale of the property at their meeting on Friday, March 15th. Their recommendation is to list the property for sale, but not specify an asking price. We'll only be listing the main property where the building is located at this time. However, the posting will indicate that the district owns additional adjacent lots that could also be sold if the buyer is interested. If the board approves the list of sale this evening, the district will be contracting with Granite City Real Estate to list the property for sale. The district will not act on any offers until 30 days after the posting goes active in order to give any interested parties adequate time to submit an offer. If no offers are received within 30 days, this will be extended to 90 days. The posting will also specify that interested buyers are to submit a proposal for the intended use of the property as part of their offer. We recently acted on a vacant lot over by Tech High School. That one we were able to get listed fairly quickly. We believe that this could get listed early next week, but it'll take a few more days because this one would require some disclosures and some additional paperwork. The district recommends that the Board of Education authorize the district to list for sale the Wilson building and solicit offers and proposals for a period of 30 days from the listing date, to be extended to 90 days if no offers are received.
And my understanding from being at the Finance Committee meeting is that after 30 days, when we do look at those, the Finance Committee will look at them. If we receive one proposal, it would make the job pretty easy. If we receive multiples, Finance Committee will look at them, and if we feel we will bring them all forward to the school board. That's one thing I want you to know. It's not the Finance Committee is going to say, we've decided this one, and so that's the only one we're going to present to the board. We would bring it all forward to the school board for a discussion, and did we say it would be at a workshop or at a, so we'd bring it all forward at a workshop where we could have a discussion on it. And from there, the board can make a decision, but the Finance Committee may make a recommendation to the board if one of them stands out as being superior.
Les?
I thought I read in here, and maybe Al can help me because he is the one who mentioned it originally, that included in that proposal would be some verification of economic That they can actually do what say they're going to do.
A qualification.
Economic qualifications. I don't see that in the, I thought I read it earlier today. Is that a part of the proposal?
We may want to add some wording in there saying that that we will review all offers and consider any qualified offers.
I thought that wasn't necessary to be included in the listing of the property, that we will be looking at those things when we enter into negotiations. So that for the purpose of the listing wasn't necessary to include that at this point. That's what I recollect from our conversation in finance. And that is part of how the negotiation goes later. So I don't know if we need to do something right now.
Willie has an answer to that.
The part with the financial piece. So what's happening at the moment, we were talking about technology. And so Amy Scallard is not here. And Amy, you're in the hospital, so you're not supposed to be paying attention to this, but she is. And so with that being said, in answering the question that Dr. Green and Al were talking about, she said that would be a contingency on the actual purchase agreement. And when I asked her, I said, what would? Then she said, the financial piece, Willie. So anyways, she just wanted to make sure that if she was sitting here, she was going to say that it was contingent.
She's in the hospital?
Yeah, she was
She's
earlier
watching
today.
us?
Yep, because she's dedicated.
Gary?
At the same token,
Turn off your television, please.
thank you. I've given her an order to get some rest.
Gary, I'm seeking a little clarification on the two lots that are associated. What type of wording or what's the procedure on those?
Yeah, I'm going to refer back to the discussion from the board finance, Al, if you want to.
The Finance Committee said that we are not going to list the lots, but it will be in the listing that the school district owns the two lots adjacent, and an interested person could include that in their offer if they would like to purchase those. But we don't want to sell the lots first and then not have them available for the big piece or the bigger piece of it. So we want to make sure that the lots remain available as long as the Wilson building is for sale. So we're not going to include those, but it will be made clear to anyone that they are available if they're interested in purchasing them.
Thank you. Any questions? Shannon?
So it says that the district will not act on any offers until 30 days after the posting. Is that wording fine with, okay, we wait at least 30 days, there's an offer somewhere in there, then it goes to finance, and then it comes to the board or work session? Are we okay with?
I might suggest we change that to the district will not review any offers until 30 days.
Thank you, Al. Any other questions? Do I have a motion?
Yes, I'd like to make a motion to authorization to sell Wilson building according to the guidelines specified from the Finance Committee, including the amendment suggested right now about putting not to change the act to act within 30 days for review.
Do I have a second? Thank you. Can you call roll, please? We're clear on the language.
I was seconding. The question was the amended language so that we won't review them for 30 days.
I saw your hand up. I wanted to make sure that you.
Monica?
So one extra comment about that we discussed within so for you to be aware, we discussed within Finance Committee is about the timeline that includes this. So this is not something that is going to happen tomorrow. So if you pay attention to the steps that are happening here, we will be reviewing after 30 days. We will start reviewing in Finance Committee the proposals that we get, if we get any. Hopefully we do. And then we will bring them to the board. We will have discussion with the board, and then we'll have a vote. So this is not going to happen anything with that building probably until June, the earliest, but not
late May or June.
Yeah, late May or June.
We discussed at Finance Committee.
The process has started.
Yep.
All right. Les, could you call roll, please?
Zach Dorhold,
Yes.
Shannon Hawes,
Yes.
Natalie Ringsmuth,
Yes.
Jeff Polrice,
Yes.
Al Dahlgren,
Yes.
Les Green is yes. Monica Segura Schwartz.
Yes.
Next up is Superintendent Report. Willie Jett.
Good evening, Chair Polrice and members of the board. I'll first begin with students. Katra Abdi, a Talahi third grader, won a Kelly Doty Award as part of a Braille reading contest this winter. The Kelly Doty Award is given to a student who has had to overcome challenges in order to become a proficient Braille reader. Next, fifth grade students across District 742 were asked to write an essay on what freedom means to them. The winners of the contest read their essays at the St. Cloud Area Sertoma Club meeting on February 25th. Paige Turali from Oak Hill won first place. Allie Beard from Westwood won second place. And Micah Diomo, also from Westwood, won third place. Next, text orchestra students had a successful day at the solo ensemble contest in Alexandria. 15 entries earned top superior ratings, including the Tech Chamber Orchestra. 3 entries earned excellent ratings. Esther Scheel was awarded Best at Sight for her guitar solo. 4 students earned perfect scores. John Bayun for violin solo, Ven Nguyen for violin solo, Clara Heinzelman for violin solo, and again Esther Scheel for her guitar solo. On Wednesday, February 27th, a group of 5 students and 2 staff members from the McKinley Area Learning Center participated in the MAP Stars Legislative Day at the state capitol. Alternative schools from around the state identified a group of student leaders whose task it was to discuss the importance of alternative schools and programs with their state senators and representatives. The group from McKinley met with Representatives Tim O'Driscoll, Tama Tice, Lisa DeMuth, and Dan Wogelmuth, as well as Senators Jerry Ralph and Jeff Howe. The students from the Area Learning Center who participated were Cody Lively, Isaac Carpenter, Tyler Plogger, Nia Williams, and Anastasia Dusowski. I also want to say congratulations to the St. Cloud Area Slapshots Adaptive Floor Hockey team and coach Mike Bakken, who are the state champions for the 2nd year in a row. And I also like to do a shout out to our local law enforcement. They do a nice job when the kids come back, when they travel up 94. Our local law enforcement gives them a parade and brings them in with the lights shining and lights going off. And so that's just a nice compliment to our students. Next, excuse me, Miss Karen Cruz. Again, you hear me talking about Karen Cruz. She was awarded the Music Educator of the Year by the Minnesota Music Educators Association. Karen is the music teacher at Madison Elementary School and has been an elementary classroom music teacher in District 742 for 42 years. Congratulations, Miss Cruz. And lastly, I'd like to congratulate the Apollo Girls basketball head coach, Miss Jill Lipp, for being named the Section 5 AAA Coach of the Year. And that concludes my superintendent's report.
Next up.
One last thing.
Go ahead,
And I just again like to thank the board for participating with the young man the way that we started out the meeting. Thank you for welcoming or giving him a warm welcome here. As you see, he stood up. He's 8 years old, and he just commands a room. So thank you for that participation.
Next up is standing committee reports. Looks like first up, Al, do you have one?
Finance and Audit Committee met on March 15th, 2019. Myself, Scott Andreasen, Amy Scallerud, and Monica were the district staff present. First subject we discussed was the sale of Wilson. Monica provided a brief summary of the community meeting held on March 9th at Cathedral High School to discuss the future of Wilson. The group holding the meeting invited neighbors, city officials, and school board members. I believe Jeff and Monica and Shannon attended that. After discussion, the committee members recommended that the school board approve listing the Wilson property for sale. With Granite City Realty, offers should include a plan for property use and evidence of funding for the purchase. And I will add to that funding for the purchase and completion of the plan. Offers will be accepted for 30 days, extended to 90 days if no offer is received. Amy will talk to the district's attorney about the language of offers and proposals. A listing price will not be stated. If approved by the school board on March 20th, which is tonight, which it was, it would probably be listed shortly thereafter, and offers received would be brought to the Board Finance Committee in May. The committee would then make a recommendation to the school board. Technology bid awards was the second thing that we talked about, and we just approved those. Tech change orders was the third item on the agenda, and we just approved those. And then we talked about some additional architect fees for the fire redesign at the new tech. Amy distributed a copy of the work authorization form from Cunningham for additional fire design fees for Summit Fire Consulting in the amount of $35,000. This is related to changes to the sprinklers and spray applied fireproofing based on the state inspection. And I believe it was on our choice, or it was our change from when we put in acoustic absorbing ceilings, we didn't need the fireproofing, which would be sprayed over our acoustic absorbing ceilings. So we had to change those things to sprinklers, and because of that request, the architects needed to redesign the things that were going into those rooms. So those were some charges applied on those changes. I also, Jeff, just wanted to do a quick update on a couple of other meetings that took place this last week. First one was Fiber Optics Joint Powers Board, which Jeff and I attended along with Gary. There was a few things that happened at that. We talked about some of the upcoming construction projects for running fiber, including the new Tech High School, and some of the city projects that they're running fiber to. We talked about, let's see, DMS collection at the St. Cloud, our move of our servers from the district media building over to the St. Cloud Police Department. And there was a contract involved with that we're signing with the city for that space. And there was, we went through that in quite a bit of detail and talked about a lot of the language. And our concern from the school district's point was that it's being housed in the police facility, and so the police department and school district will have access to the server room. And our concern was that we're covered for data privacy, so that members from the police department are not able to access data on the school district computers, which is very private data. And it had to do with, there was a whole bunch of different things in there, but we feel as though we addressed that very well. Talked about the 2020 budget, which is going down once again. We continue to add partners to the Granite network, and as the partners increase and pay a portion of the cost of that fiber optic network, we are able to reduce our cost because it's us and the city that own it. And Gary, correct me if I'm wrong, I think it's going down by $19,000 this year. And we say it every year, but we're getting really, really close to where the Granite fiber optic network is going to be a net plus for the school district. It's not going to cost us anything to have the fiber optic network, but we will actually have enough partners on board that they will pay for that fiber optic network, and we will bring in a positive cash flow. So it gets better and better every year. We're getting there. We're getting really close. And we had some things with the some insurance waivers, but all in all, it was a very good meeting. Micah for the city does a phenomenal job. He is buried in this all day, every day, and knows way more about where fiber optic lines are run in this city than anyone could ever imagine. But Micah's awesome, and he just kind of runs us and walks us through it for stuff that we don't. Gary, you may. I don't understand it very well, but he puts it in a way that I do. Then the second one that I was going to talk about is myself, Lori Posh, and Jerry Swanson from Clearview, a special education teacher, had the opportunity yesterday to go down to the state capitol and help Dan Wolgamott, who was presenting his bill, HF 1162. I put a copy of it on the table for each one of you. we were able to testify in front of the House Education Finance Committee, and feel like we did a pretty darn good job. We represented St. Cloud very well. Really made the case for what special education, what the special education cross-subsidy is doing to our district. And we had help from another, what was it, Waconia was there. The superintendent from Waconia was there. And he really supported us in our message and said a lot of the same things. But we talked a lot about how the special education cross-subsidy is not, special education is funded, it's fully funded. And we didn't want to get into whether or not there should be more services added or less services. It's just that special education is mandated services, and they are funded. They have to be. And the way that we fund it is we take money out of regular education, and so we spent a lot of time talking about how it's affecting our regular education budget. And the more unfunded mandates they put on us, the less able we are to deliver a high-quality regular education to our students, and we do a phenomenal job given the dollars that we have. And then I took out the profiles and I shared with them so how do we do it? How can we still continue to offer such a high-quality education? And I showed them where those dollars come from, not only in our district, but every district that's hit with a special high education or special education cross-subsidy. Comes out of activities and athletics, it comes out of career and tech education, it comes out of administration, it comes out of building maintenance, everything that you can afford to make cuts in and stretch your budget as far as you possibly can without affecting the educational experience, that's where it comes from. But it creates huge inequities between districts. And I mean, I pointed out to them, the one that it was just shocking, I think, is when you look at Minneapolis School District, and they spend I thought it was $111 per student on extracurriculars, or extra activities and extracurriculars, versus the higher ones were up in the $600 to $700 per student in extracurricular activities. And if you take a district and with the number of students, and you take a $600 additional payment per student, think of the things that you can offer. And I kind of looked at the committee and I said, you should be embarrassed to even see that this exists. The biggest school district in the state is operating on their activities, their extracurricular activities, they're operating on 20% of what other districts are operating on. 20% of what the state average is, they're operating on about 12% of what other districts are operating on. And that is the piece of a school district that builds community involvement, it builds community pride, it enhances kids' education, it keeps them in school. I mean, you wonder why a city like Minneapolis has so many students that are struggling so much. They don't have the money to offer them those pieces that would really encourage them to do well in school, to stay in school, and unfortunately, St. Cloud we're higher than Minneapolis, but we're number 26 out of 32 that I had ranked in extracurricular activity spending. And it's shameful. It's absolutely shameful. And I felt like I was able to get that piece across very well. And then Lori, then the superintendent from Waconia, he shared his piece, and then Lori came in, and boy, she did an awesome job of just wrapping it all up, pulling it all together. Talked a lot about programming that we would be able to offer, educational programming that we would be able to offer in our district that we can't right now. Talked about counseling services, talked about our high-needs students and how even we're regular education spending per pupil in our district is right on the state average, yet we are the highest special ed. Here you go, second highest EL, second highest free and reduced lunch in the state. We have got some of the most some of the highest needs students in the state, but because we have this large special education cross-subsidy, our funding is average for the state. So you're asking us to do a lot more with a lot less, and it is shameful, and I really felt like they got it. So it was an interesting experience. I've never done that before, but it was a lot of fun. So, and I hope we got the message across. So that's my report.
Thank you all. Zach, legislative?
No formal report. We have yet to meet, but I was gonna kind of, Al stole a little bit what I was gonna touch on, but I just wanted to thank Lori Posh and Jerry Swanson and Al for their testimony on Representative Wolgamott's bill, which is one very modest attempt to increase that funding coming from the state that would maybe address about 13% of the uncovered cost for that cross-subsidy mandate, which, 60, maybe 90 million out of a biennium, which is actually 2 billion is the full shortfall. So, but I was able to watch because I had a client didn't show up during that hour, and so I tuned in because you can watch online, and the people who represented us were the experts in that room. And it was, you could see it on the looks of the legislators' faces. You could see it on the other superintendent from Waconia, and who must have repeated what Al said several times. And we just, everybody, even Jerry, who it was her first time testifying, they were the experts, and you guys in that room, and did an amazing job. And you may be called on to do that again. I don't think, really, I don't know how else to say it. I'm shy of that term expert, but holy cow, you guys did an awesome job.
I want to share too, I thought for a long time on how I could drive the point home to people, because legislators always want to bring the bacon home to their own district. So they all love to put dollars on the formula. And if it comes out there's $10 million and we can put it on the special education cross-subsidy, or we can put it on the formula, they all say formula, formula, because they get to bring something home to their own district. And so I started it out just saying, so the special education cross-subsidy, it costs regular education. I said, how would you guys all feel if you had to go back to your district? Now, our special education cross-subsidy is approximately 8% of our district's budget. And I said, how would you feel if you had to go back to your district and go up to the superintendent and tell him that the best you could do this year was negotiate an 8% cut to general education funding? And I said, that's what you do to St. Cloud every single year. We are faced with an 8% cut to our general education funding. And I said, now start to think about what your superintendent would have to do and what he would have to cut. Where would those cuts come from? And what would you hear from the parents, and what would it do to your district? And so there was a lot of things that were said there, but I just wanted to share that one because I thought that was a effective way to get them to personalize it in their own district.
So there's a hope for the bill that Representative Wolgamott authored when the chair of the committee did sign on as a co-author. So my next point was that we have yet to meet because House targets and Senate targets haven't been released, but they will next week. And once those financial numbers know, then we know what's in play, what's not in play, and how to reapproach whatever we may need to do as far as legislative matters and maybe other matters, depending on what this filing happens with other things. So that's what I'll have right now.
Thank you, Zach. Monica?
So, Zach, did you say something about the Senate? Do we have an accompanying bill in the Senate?
Yes, there is a companion bill in the Senate. Representative Uyghur, who I believe North Metro with a district, whether it's Columbia Heights or something that has, similar problems. But we are the kind of the poster child for this, and it was highlighted, and the good thing, but a sad thing, is there are more districts in this experiencing this kind of budgetary crisis. So thankfully we have more people jumping on board, where this used to be definitely not a partisan issue. It was a geographical, district by district issue. So we have more allies statewide, which says a lot on the downside, but the good side is, hey, this is an issue that's front and center down there now.
Thank you. Monica, do you have a report?
So the, what is my committee called? The Negotiations Committee, Personal Negotiations Committee met on March 6th. We discussed superintendent evaluation that is coming up according to the guidelines that we have discussed before. We will be reviewing a little bit of the questions that we have for the questionnaire that we have for the staff. And then we also are going to be reviewing a little bit more about what questionnaire will go to the board about the superintendent. We also mentioned that last year our former board member Bruce Moss had nominated our superintendent for the best superintendent of the year, but then we did not get any response from MSBE. And it seems like they did not receive it, or we still wanted to do follow-up about that. So I had talked to Bruce about it, and he has been looking for the information, but he had sent also some emails to Al, that was the former chair, about that, and we wanted to continue with that process. We also talk about the Reimagine Task Force. We got an update about key elements of that task force, where co-teachers and differentiating instruction, perfect world, reading and math. There are some budget pieces that they are talking about in that Reimagine Task Force. And we were also waiting for the superintendent to meet with both of the principals in what happened there. That was March 6th, so I'm guessing that the superintendent may have a little bit more of an update on that now, but I will just continue with my report. We also look at reorganization of learning and teaching, the structure. We look at some administrative hiring. So in the administrative hirings that we look at the assistant superintendent for secondary education, Apollo principal, elementary principal that it was in screening, North assistant principal that was in screening, elementary assistant principal posted in Lincoln, administrative intern that was posted. I will yield to Tracy to give us, because I think that I saw some emails later after some of these positions have been filled now. And the last thing that we look in the personal was to look at a nepotism policy, and we send that to board development. So if Tracy, do you have any update about the positions that were posted?
We've been busy doing lots of interviews. We spent about 10 hours today doing the interviews, the first round of interviews for the elementary principal positions, and we'll be interviewing next week for the secondary AP positions.
Tracy?
Go ahead, Al.
Okay. Last time we did the elementary principals, I know that there was an opportunity for the community to interview the final 3 or something. Are we planning to do that again this time?
Yeah, we usually with the finalists will come to Willie, and then we do the community forums, which allows for representation from each of the schools, including community members.
And also the assistant superintendent secondary education, that was filled, right?
Yes, that was filled and announced.
Right.
Monica, you had a question, I believe, for me.
Yep.
And it was related to the Reimagine schools. We're reimagining. And so everybody on the board kind of has a clue as to what she was referring to. And so many board members Part of the conversation was about Lincoln and Talahi and Madison and Discovery, and so some of you on the board witnessed or attended some meetings that were at Talahi and at Lincoln, and I almost said something that I didn't need to say, but at Talahi and at Lincoln. And so those principals were working with their respective staffs and communities. The update that I would add to that is there's also some conferences that are happening at Talahi at the end, not Talahi, at Lincoln at the end of this week. And so once we gather that information and have those kind of conversations with parents, then we would be able to proceed or make the next decision as it relates to that.
Thank you, Monica. Thank you, Willie. Tracy? Les, do you have a report?
Yes, we did not meet. That's my report. None of the staff were available because of the interviews. So we'll wait till our next scheduled meeting on the 24th. They've been very busy and doing good things.
Thank you. Next is future agenda items. Board of Education members may suggest items, topics for future board meeting agendas. At our April work session, we have the CTE presentation, new tech update, and a technology update. Any questions or discussions? That concludes tonight's meeting. Thank you, everybody, for coming.
Yeah, Jeff, hang on.